The one mistake Jesus said opens the soul to archons. Avoid this tonight. There's a single habit practiced by billions of people every night that Jesus explicitly warned creates an open doorway for archontic invasion, yet modern Christianity has completely scrubbed this teaching from mainstream awareness. This isn't about moral failure or sin in the traditional sense, but rather a specific energetic vulnerability that occurs during a particular state of consciousness. The Gnostic texts that the Church deemed heretical preserve this warning with crystal clarity. And if you've been experiencing nightmares, sleep paralysis, or waking up more drained than when you went to bed, you may be making this exact mistake without realizing the spiritual consequences. The sleep state is portal and battlefield. Jesus understood something about human consciousness that modern science is only beginning to validate. Through sleep, research, and studies of hypnagogic states, when you transition from waking awareness into sleep, your consciousness passes through a threshold zone where the boundaries between dimensions become permeable. Ancient mystics call this the borderland, and it represents both tremendous opportunity for spiritual experience and significant vulnerability to predatory entities. The electrical activity in your brain shifts from beta waves into alpha and theta, which correlates with a loosening of the energetic structures that normally protect your field during waking hours. The Gospel of Thomas, discovered at Nag Hammadi and containing sayings of Jesus not found in canonical scriptures, includes teaching about vigilance during sleep transitions. The Gospel of Thomas, discovered at Nag Hammadi and containing sayings of Jesus not found in canonical scriptures, includes teaching about vigilance during sleep transitions. This process is natural and necessary for restoration, but it creates windows of exposure. If you enter sleep in states of unresolved emotional turmoil, fear, or spiritual disconnection, you're essentially leaving doors unlocked that should be sealed. Archontic intelligence, which exists in the lower astral dimensions, can slip through these openings. The early Christian practice of Compline, the final prayer service before sleep, wasn't mere ritual but intentional protection protocol. Monks would chant Psalm 91, recite protective prayers, and consciously place themselves under divine covering before allowing themselves to become unconscious. They understood that sleep was a small death, a temporary departure from the body that required the same spiritual preparation as actual physical death. Modern believers who simply collapse into bed after scrolling social media or watching violent entertainment have no idea. They're violating basic spiritual hygiene that Jesus taught his closest followers. Contemporary accounts of sleep paralysis, in which people wake to find themselves unable to move while sensing malevolent presences in the room, correlate remarkably with descriptions of archontic attack from ancient texts. These aren't random neurological glitches, but encounters with actual entities that have accessed someone's field during the vulnerable transition between sleep and waking. This is the consequence of entering sleep with the specific vulnerability that Jesus warned against, the fatal mistake of unforgiveness before sleep. The single practice that Jesus identified as creating the widest opening for archontic invasion is going to sleep while holding resentment or active hatred toward another person. In the Gospel of Matthew chapter 5, he states that if you bring your gift to the altar and remember your brother has something against you, leave your gift and first be reconciled. But the deeper teaching, preserved in oral tradition and Gnostic texts, specifies that maintaining unforgiveness into the sleep state is spiritually catastrophic. It creates what ancient mystics described as a hook or cord, connecting you to the person you resent, and archons travel along these cords like parasites following supply lines. When you harbor unforgiveness, you're maintaining an energetic connection to past events and other people that keeps you locked in lower vibrational frequencies. Emotions like bitterness, revenge fantasies, and rehearsed arguments create distortions in your energy field that appear to archontic entities as entry points. Imagine your aura as having a specific electromagnetic signature when you're in states of love, peace, and forgiveness versus when you're consumed by grudges. The latter creates frequencies that archontic consciousness can match and penetrate. Forgiveness isn't primarily about being nice, but about sealing your field against invasion. The Lord's Prayer, which Jesus taught as a daily practice, includes the specific line about forgiving debtors immediately before asking for protection from evil. This sequence wasn't random but revealed the causal relationship between unforgiveness and vulnerability to dark forces. The Aramaic version makes this even clearer, with washboken kalbain, meaning release our offenses, directly preceding elapatsan, mean bisa, meaning deliver us from evil. Jesus was providing a formula where forgiveness creates the prerequisite condition for protection. Without the first, the second cannot function. What happens energetically when you go to sleep holding resentment is that your consciousness during the sleep state gravitates toward the person or situation you haven't forgiven. Your astral body is pulled into their field or into the morphic resonance of the original wounding event. This creates a kind of time loop where you're energetically reliving the trauma every night, which explains why people with deep unforgiveness often report dreams about the same person or situation repeatedly. But worse than repetitive dreams, these nocturnal connections become bridges that archontic entities cross to access your undefended consciousness. The reason institutional Christianity downplayed this teaching is that it places spiritual protection squarely in the individual's hands rather than requiring priestly mediation. If Christians understood that their own unforgiveness was the primary thing making them vulnerable to demonic attack, they wouldn't need elaborate exorcism rituals or hierarchical authority. Jesus taught liberation through simple practices, not complicated theological systems. The Aramaic solution that severs archontic access, archontic entities, as described in texts like the Apocryphon of John and the hypostasis of the Ark, don't have creative power or independent energy sources. They are parasited by nature, which means they can only feed on energy that humans generate through low vibrational emotional states. Fear is their primary food source, but resentment and unforgiveness create particularly rich feeding opportunities because these emotions are sustained over time, rather than being momentary reactions. Jesus taught specific Aramaic phrases to counteract this vulnerability before sleep. The primary phrase, Shwaklan Kobine, translates as, "Forgive us our debts," or "release our offenses." But the vocalization carries sonic properties beyond the literal meaning. When you pronounce shpwak with the guttural sound at the beginning, it creates a vibration in the throat chakra that practitioners describe as a cutting or releasing sensation. Lan means to us, or for us, establishing personal application. Kauban contains the root meaning of debt or obligation, but also carries the energetic quality of anything that binds or hooks consciousness to another person or past event. Speaking this phrase before sleep, while consciously bringing to mind the person or situation you need to release, creates what ancient practitioners described as a severing of etheric cords. The sound itself, combined with intention, operates like spiritual scissors, cutting the energetic threads that connect you to resentment and that provide pathways for archontic access. Jesus instructed his disciples to vocalize this phrase audibly rather than merely thinking it, because the physical vibration in the body creates tangible shifts in the energy field that silent mental repetition cannot achieve. The companion phrase, Ela Patson Min Bisha, meaning, deliver us from evil, or rescue us from the evil one, follows the forgiveness formula. Ela Patson carries the sense of being extracted or pulled out from danger, while Min Bisha refers to the evil force or the evil one. In context, Jesus was teaching that after cutting cords through forgiveness using Shpwaklan Kaben Yutin, need to actively invoke protection through Ela Patsan Min Bisa to fill the space that's been cleared and prevent immediate reaction. For those wanting to learn proper pronunciation of these Aramaic protection phrases and receive guided audio recordings of Jesus's actual bedtime prayer sequence, we're preparing a specialized resource with transliteration guides and practical application instructions. The link for early access will be available in the video description. Modern practitioners who have recovered these Aramaic nighttime prayers report consistent experiences across different backgrounds and locations. Within the first week of vocalizing Shpwaklan Kalbain and Elapatsan Min Bisa before sleep, while consciously releasing they describe marked improvements in sleep quality, reduction or elimination of nightmares, the cessation of sleep paralysis episodes, and waking with noticeably more energy. The nightly protocol Jesus practiced. Jesus didn't just teach forgiveness as an abstract virtue, but practiced a specific nightly protocol for clearing his field before sleep. The canonical Gospels hint at this, through references to him withdrawing to pray at evening time. But the fuller picture comes from oral traditions preserved in monastic communities. His practice involved a systematic review of the day's interactions, identifying any moments where he felt contracted or reactive, and consciously releasing those energetic charges before allowing himself to become unconscious. The protocol begins with assuming a seated or kneeling position rather than lying down, maintaining enough physical alertness to engage the practice intentionally. Jesus would bring to mind each person he'd encountered that day, and specifically, anyone toward whom he noticed residual negative emotion or judgment. Rather than suppressing these feelings or pretending they didn't exist, he would acknowledge them fully and then make a conscious choice to release them. The Aramaic phrase, "Shwak len kobain," was spoken aloud while visualizing cords of connection being cut and returned to neutral ground. After the forgiveness component, Jesus would recite Psalm 91 in Aramaic, specifically using the protective phrase Yoshev Basiter, Elion, meaning dwelling in the secret place of the Most High. He would then continue with Batsul Shadi Yet Lonan, meaning, in the shadow of the Almighty I abide. These vocalizations established a protective field around his energy body before sleep. He understood that clearing negative attachments created clean space that then needed to be filled with frequency and placed under divine authority. The final invocation Jesus used was Imar Ladnai Maxi Emsudati, meaning, I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. This declaration, spoken in Aramaic, created what practitioners describe as a canopy or dome of light forming overhead, extending downward to completely encompass the physical and subtle body. Jesus taught that speaking these words, while visualizing this protective structure, made it exponentially more effective than passive mental hope for protection. The final component involved a practice of conscious transition into sleep, maintaining a thread of awareness even as the body relaxed into unconsciousness. Jesus would silently repeat Abwan Dibushmaya, meaning, Our Father, who art in heaven, as a mantra-like focus that kept a portion of his awareness identified with the divine rather than completely merging with dream states. This is what mystical Christianity calls practicing the presence of God during sleep, implementing protection tonight. The practical application of this teaching doesn't require years of spiritual training or mystical initiation. You can begin tonight by implementing Jesus' three-step protocol before allowing yourself to fall asleep. First, sit on the edge of your bed and bring to mind anyone toward whom you're currently holding resentment, anger, or the sense of being owed an apology or restitution. This includes family members, co-workers, political figures, ex-partners, and even yourself if you're harboring self-condemnation. Second, for each person or situation on your list, speak out loud the Aramaic phrase, Shwak len kobain, 3 times while holding the person's face or the situation in your mind. Then follow immediately with the English statement, I release you and I release myself from this energetic connection. I forgive you not because what happened was acceptable, but because I refuse to give my power away to the past. I reclaim my energy, and I cut any cords between us. Third, after clearing establish protection by vocalizing the Aramaic phrases from Psalm 9. As you lie down to sleep, begin silently repeating Abwan Debushmaya, meaning Our Father who art in heaven, as a gentle focus for your attention. Don't force concentration, but allow the Aramaic phrase to cycle softly in the background of awareness. As your body relaxes, this maintains a thread of connection to divine presence even as you drift into sleep, preventing complete unconsciousness that leaves you vulnerable. What you'll likely notice within the first few nights of this practice is that your sleep becomes deeper. Your dreams shift from anxious or repetitive patterns to more neutral or even positive content, and you wake feeling more restored. The Aramaic vocalizations that Jesus taught work whether you believe in them or not, because they function through vibrational mechanics rather than faith-based magic. The resistance you encounter when trying to implement this practice is itself evidence of its power. Archonic intelligence that has been feeding on your unforgiveness will work through your own mind to generate reasons why certain people don't deserve forgiveness or why speaking Aramaic phrases is unnecessary. Notice these thoughts without believing them. The part of you that doesn't want to vocalize Shwak len kobain before sleep is the part that has been colonized by parasitic consciousness. Your true self knows that freedom comes through releasing the past. Research sources. The Nag Hammadi Library, edited by James Robinson, not in his image by John Lamb Lash. The Aramaic Testament translated by Andrew Gabriel Roth. This information has the potential to radically shift your spiritual protection and quality of life if you actually apply it rather than just finding it interesting. Subscribe to this channel if you're serious about recovering the practical mystical teachings that institutional Christianity buried. Share this video with anyone you know who struggles with sleep issues, nightmares, or that sense of being spiritually oppressed. Comment below with your experiences after implementing the Aramaic forgiveness protocol tonight using Shwaklan Kabayin and the protective phrases. And let's build a community of people who are done being spiritually vulnerable.